Hi, Finville families. We're on our last chapter for this week. Remember, no reading ahead. Hank Zipzer time. It's my favorite time of day. I don't know about you. Remember yesterday, Hank had just brought his Niagara Falls project to show the class, and Nick McKelty said that he had a surprise for Hank, and we don't know what it is yet. And Principal Love didn't seem very impressed that he had brought this big project. So let's find out. Ooh, if you look at the chapter heading, that might be a clue. It's called foreshadowing. I wonder if something bad is going to happen. Let's find out. Ms. Adolph was on the prowl. She was hungry for paper. What does that mean? On the prowl. So she was looking for everybody's assignment. She was hungry for their papers. Please take your essays out, class, she said. I hope you remember to staple them in the upper left-hand corner. She walked up and down the aisles, clutching her roll book close to her chest. When she stopped at my desk, I could feel her hot breath on my head. Your desk appears to be empty, Mr. Zipzer, she said. My heart was pounding. This was the moment. I thought we agreed you were to read your composition first, she snapped. And I am totally prepared, Miss Adolph, I said. I looked at Frankie. I gave him a nod, and I gave Ashley a nod, and the three of us stood and went to our planned positions. Ashley took the saran wrap tube and attached it with tape to the faucet at the cleanup sink. Frankie and I disappeared into the hall. Excuse me? Miss Adolph shouted. I think she was starting to get a little angry. I stuck my head back into the classroom and said, Get ready for creativity like you've never seen before. Out in the hall, we got my costume out of the paper bag. Frankie held the yellow raincoat for me to slip into, and I pulled on the boots and the fisherman's hat. Then we picked up the project and walked into my classroom, where we placed it on the sink counter. Exactly what do you think you're doing? Miss Adolph demanded to know. What you're about to see, Miss Adolph, is what I did on my summer vacation. My living essay. The kids moved closer so they could see. Ryan Shimatsu even stood up on his chair. Katie Sperling and Kim Paulson were whispering to each other and giggling. I noticed that Nick McKelty kept looking at the door at the classroom, like he was expecting someone. Who do you think Nick McKelty could be expecting? Before Miss Adolph could object again, I began. Niagara Falls was formed 12,000 years ago, but when I visited this summer, it didn't look a day over 11,000. It did, however, look wet, really wet. That was Ashley's cue. She turned on the faucet at the sink. With a quick twist of the nozzle, the water started to run through our hose and into the hole at the top of the papier-mâché cliff. I was so excited I couldn't even continue. The falls were actually doing what they were supposed to do, falling. The water hitting the bottom of the turkey pan sounded like rain. Ashley turned on the fish tank pump, and it started to bubble, moving the water from the bottom of the turkey pan back up to the top of the falls. The boat at the bottom of the pan rose in the water. It was floating. Everything was working. 600,000 gallons of water flow over these falls every second, I said. Old Robert had finally come in handy with those facts. Do you see that boat? I asked, pointing to the Lego people in it. Picture my mother and my father, my sister and me, dressed as I am now, covered with mist. At that moment, Frankie turned on the fan, and a little of the water started to blow towards my raincoat, and the kids gasped. Awesome, said Ryan Shimatsu. Truly awesome, said Justin, Ricky, and Gerald. They're Ryan's crew, and they like whatever he likes. Half the falls are in Canada, and the other half are in the United States, making Niagara Falls a link between our two countries. I went on. I remembered the tour guide had said that while we were waiting in line to get on the boat. I was on a roll. There were so many facts I knew about Niagara Falls, I could have done one until lunch or longer. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw that Frankie was trying to get my attention. I glanced over at him, and he whispered something, but I couldn't quite understand him. It sounded like no peeking. I didn't know what he was talking about, and I shrugged and went on. We left New York City on a muggy August morning. I said, pretending to be driving in my car. My mother said it was so hot you could fry eggs on her knees. That's an odd expression. So hot you could fry eggs on her knees. That must mean that the sun was shining through the car and making her knees really hot. I don't think she fried eggs on them, though, but they must have been really hot. The kids laughed. They were loving this. I really felt wonderful and successful. Maybe I'll be a stand-up comedian when I grow up, I thought. Take this show on the road. I looked at Frankie. He wasn't laughing. Why not? Whatever he'd been trying to say to me, he said again. No peeking? What? Was that it? I still couldn't understand him. He sure was flapping his arms around a lot. Just then the door swung open, and there walked Leland Love. Wow, this is great. The principal was coming to see my project, just like I'd hoped. Tourists from all over the world come to see Niagara Falls, I said. I was getting more and more confident by the minute. A couple from Italy asked me to take their picture with the falls in the background, I added. I hadn't even planned to tell that part of my story. It just came out. Suddenly, Frankie walked in front of me with an Italian accent and said, I think these fellows are better than SpaghettiOs. The class howled. SpaghettiOs rule, laughed Luke Whitman. SpaghettiOs, forgettiOs. It didn't take much for Luke to go out of control. What are you doing? I whispered to Frankie. You weren't supposed to talk. I've been trying to tell you, Frankie whispered. We're leaking. Look. Uh-oh. I looked over at the hose. Oh, no, this wasn't happening. The cardboard was soaking wet. The tube was turning to mush, and the last piece of tape holding the hose to the cliff was coming loose. I yelled for Ashley to turn off the water. She ran to the sink, but she was so nervous that she turned the water on full force instead, which totally blew the hose off the project. Water sprayed everywhere, but mostly on Mrs. Adolph. That's not going to be good. She opened her mouth to speak and got a mouthful of falls. The hose started to spin around, and the kids all ran for cover, laughing and shouting. Miss Adolph was so stunned, she just stood there. Bam! She got pelted again with a blast of water. Okay, so I don't know if you've ever turned a hose on or like what the sprinkler looks like when it's going around and around and around. That's what's happening right now. The hose is kind of all flopping all over and water spraying all over his classroom. His teacher's getting all wet. I don't think this is going to turn out good. She put her hands up to her face to block the water. Her roll book fell on the floor. That's where she takes her attendance and keeps all of her grades. Teachers think they're pretty important. It landed in a puddle of water, and she gasped and tried to reach for it, but Luke Whitman was running wild and stomped on it, pushing it completely underwater. Mrs. Adolph stared at her roll book. The paper was absorbing water fast and turning into a soggy mess. She opened her mouth wide like she was going to scream really loudly, but all that came out was a mouse like eek. Bam! The hose came around and hit her with another shot of water. She was really wet now. It looked like she just stepped out of the shower with her clothes on. The pile of gray hair that was always neatly pinned on top of her head fell down and looked like a horse's tail. The water! Principal Love yelled. Someone turn off the water! The kids were all laughing pretty hard, so no one moved toward the sink. Principal Love bolted across the room. He had to push by Luke Whitman, who was leading a bunch of kids in a rain dance. There was so much water on the floor, the classroom looked like a pond. Pencils, crayons, Miss Adolph's roll book, and even a tuna fish sandwich in a baggie floated by. Can you picture it? Ooh. Principal Love sloshed over to the sink, and as he reached the counter, he stepped on the baggie and exploded, and the tuna sandwich squished out from under his shoe. It was a slippery mess. Principal Love was sliding on the sandwich like he was on water skis. The last thing I saw before he went swimming was his hand reaching for the counter with the turkey pan on it. As the pan tipped, the papier-mâché flew, and the muddy, mushy Niagara Falls landed with a splat all over Principal Love's face. I didn't mean to laugh, but I just couldn't stop. In fact, I was laughing so hard that I fell tush first into the water. And what do I see but Nick McKelty's hand reaching out to Mr. Love. Don't worry, sir, he said. I'll save you. Sometimes I think things happen the way they're supposed to because Nick McKelty, suck-up of the century, slipped to and went flying head first into the muck. When he came up for air, he looked like he had a papier-mâché chicken sitting on his head. Oh, I can just picture that. He wiped off his face and leaned over to Principal Love. Didn't I tell you Zipzer was about to launch a disaster, he said. Oh, so that's why Principal Love came to class. McKelty, that rat, told him to come and see me make a fool of myself. And stupid me thought it was because he heard I had a great project. Principal Love didn't say a word. All he did was wag his finger at me, and I knew what that meant. I'll see you in my office now. Uh-oh. Hank's in some big trouble now, isn't he? But all he was trying to do was just do his project. What do you think? Do you think he should be in trouble? We'll have to find out. Don't read ahead or I'll sick Principal Love on you. Bye.